Oops, I did it again. Stupid thing. There. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Loreweek. I am tired, so if I start acting or sounding tired, it's because I am. I'm going to just jump right into it this week. I don't actually have a huge amount of things to discuss this Loreweek, which is fine, because we've got other stuff to do. First, a couple of little tidbits of news, as I usually do right in the beginning. First of all, it turns out that Castlevania TV show that I referenced last week is, in fact, going to be animated. It's going to be a cartoon. I don't know, actually, if it's going to be... I should rephrase that. I don't know if it's going to be a cartoon or if it's going to be CGI. But it is not going to be live action. Admittedly, that's kind of what I was expecting. But... thought I'd mention it. We will be talking about something with regards to Zelda in a bit here. We'll be talking about Mass Effect, of course. At this point, we might be talking about Mass Effect every week, at this point. I've got a couple of things to mention really quick. And then we're going to go and play Heroes of the Storm, like, for the rest of the day, or at least until everyone has all 15 matches they need. Which is probably going to be a little bit on the boring side, so I'm going to kind of put it as a Q&A sort of a thing, because honestly, we're going to need something to talk about while we're just mashing those stupid things over and over. And now the news. The Dacio Sandero has sent me a new picture. Sorry. I do actually have a very small bit of news, which I don't think really deserves its own news section, so I'll go ahead and put it at the intro here. Let me close this out really quick. Yeah, don't mind that. That's the previous picture. I gotta update it. Very, very non-news, but I thought I'd go ahead and mention it, because if I don't, people will assume that I didn't talk about it. As you can see, we have some screenshots. There's actually 2 from Final Fantasy VII-R and 1 from Kingdom Hearts 3. I actually kind of already did my own analysis of this, but since I did that in the middle of a Dark Souls 2 stream, I'm just going to repeat everything I've already said. First of all, there's a triangle button that you can use while you're active as Cloud. I have no idea what it does, but it's level 1, whatever it is. The ATB bar appears to have charges that may be, storing actions, kind of a Bravely Default sort of a thing, or it may be starting up some new damage, or, a charge attack. I really don't know what that means. That's pure speculation. Of course, HP, MP, limit break, all the other things you'd expect to see. You'll also notice that, by all intents, it appears that we actually have the ability to switch between characters. L1 and R1, switching between Cloud and Barret, so that's nice. And of course, all the UI is actually quite simple and easy to perceive down there in the corner. The one and only question I have... Oh, I'm sorry, actually, hang on, before I go further, I will also talk about the stuff on the ground, which I do think is actually a good thing. Legitimately, because it's pulling the Wildstar thing, a MMO that kind of crashed and burned financially, but was actually pretty good for what it was. By the way, how's the audio volume? And in this case, there's it's showing you where it's about to attack. It's showing you where the attacks are going to hit, and I do think that is a good thing when it comes to a full 3D, non-pausable, non-turn-based game. So actually seeing the stuff on the ground is encouraging. It also pretty much means, by my interpretation, that there is no turn-based, there's no ATB. It's going to be fully active, because, to be blunt, there is no reason to have that kind of crap on the ground unless it's fully real-time. And so, there's that. The one and only thing that's weird, so there's only 2 things, really, in this whole thing that make me question. One is the triangle button over on Cloud, which, again, is separate from the limit bar, so I really don't know what's up with that. And in the lower left is the materia thing. Now, I've come up with 2 theories for this. First, that they're expanding on the materia system. We actually talked about this yesterday. And because the materia system is so modular and there's so much you can do with it, that they might be making more active stuff, actual abilities you can use in combat with materia that are not just spells. And I'd be okay with that, honestly. That sounds cool. The other possibility is that this is the menu, period. As in, what we are looking at is not the battle UI, It's the UI. And that's it. So, in other words, you know, attack, magic, materia, item might be all we see, period. I think the former is a little more likely. It's also possible this is just a beta thing. That's it. Like I said, I don't have much to share. It looks cool, as the saying goes. Oh, also, there's going to be cover. I thought I'd mention that as well. I also have one other thing I've literally been sitting on all week to show you. I gotta find the image really quick now. Oh, hang on, let me show you the cover thing really quick. Here's what I mean by cover. We can actually see as we're just kind of hiding there, like, oh, God! And some guy's like, ah, shoot him! So, yeah, cover. So, guys, I know all of you are big Star Wars fans, and if you're not, then you're wrong. But I wanted to talk about Star Wars, and as we all know, you know, people love to theorycraft about Star Wars. I love to theorycraft about Star Wars, and I think it's about time that I start theorycrafting about Snoke. Now, you guys have all, of course, heard my big theory about the fact that Snoke is, in fact, a Jedi, a Sith holocron, or was... I have admittedly abandoned the theory about him being Vishay. That theory has been tossed into the water. But I actually do still genuinely think he is a Sith holocron. But I was analyzing some stuff. And I found out I've got a new hardcore theory, guys. I want to show you this picture, okay? So, as you can see, I think Snoke is actually Snoke. As you can see, he's got some Snoke on his forehead, and a little bit more Snoke on the eyes. And if you ask him, are you Snoke, he will actually say yes, as you can see on the left there. There's actually a little bit of the word Snoke written into his collar by his mother. And he's got the same cheek crack thing there, no matter how you look at it. So, as you can see, I think this is pretty definitive. I think this is the strongest theory I've ever had, so I'm pretty sure Snoke is, in fact, Snoke. Let's talk about Zelda. For those of you not aware, Breath of the Wild has already announced a DLC thing. And from everything that I've understood by the way they've announced it, because they announced it really weird. It's not exactly highly communicative as common. Oh yes, by the way, The Last Jedi is plural, which doesn't actually mean or change anything from my other theory of crafting, so there we go. Zelda is going to be having some kind of a season pass thing, but the thing is, it's not quite the same as other season passes. It's basically a DLC bundle. And you have to buy the bundle from all accounts. You can't buy individual DLC pieces. You have to buy the whole thing. It will include some cosmetic stuff and some other stuff, and there's apparently going to be some new dungeons and some new story elements to it. Details are still fairly vague. A lot of people have asked me to comment on this, so all I'm going to say is Mario Kart 8. Now, for those of you who want me to go into slightly more detail than that, there are 2 DLCs for Mario Kart 8, for those of you who are not actually aware of that fact. And that's been true for a while now. I mean, it's a Wii U game. Both of those DLCs were pretty awesome, actually. They were new maps, which were good, fun, and interesting, and actually were genuinely well presented, and content. It was new content. Now, obviously, that was a racing game, so in that context, it was new content in the form of new tracks and new people to drive as. And new karts to drive as. But all 3 of those were added. I don't know what Gary's saying, but I'll remind you about the Blazer, apparently. Anyways, so yeah, they already did DLC for a Nintendo game. I mention this because several people have been like, oh my god, Nintendo's finally doing DLC, and that's not actually true. They've already done DLC, and this is also not the first time. Awakening had quite a bit of DLC. They already expanded on some DLC stuff with some of their other handheld games. This is not new, is what I'm trying to say. However, I point to Mario Kart 8 specifically because that was content, as in actual real meat being added to the base game, as opposed to just, hey, you know, here's some stupid crap. So I am hopeful, at the very least, that the DLC for Breath of the Wild, or is it Breath of the Wind? I can't actually remember. The new Zelda Switch, will actually be good. I am not buying it now. I'm a little strapped for cash at the moment. I did have to buy a Switch a couple months ago. But I am at least tangentially enthused about the thing. I am curious if it's going to establish a bit of a trend, because we've already had a God, I am so tired. I got like 4 hours of sleep. Actually, it was closer to 6. We've already had the situation with FF15, where FF15 is being treated as a PC game, and as a result, it's still being updated after the fact, which is something that is no longer news for PC games. You know, nobody. I mean, obviously, it's a degree of news, but nobody's like, oh my God, they're coming out with a new expansion to Stellaris. Nobody looks at that and is like, oh my God, that's some amazing, breathtaking thing. It's just another thing that happens normally. And I think this is yet another step that FF15 already kind of started in towards this being a normal thing, and us actually having normal console updates post-release, which I've already kind of talked about extensively and has lots and lots of possibilities to go very badly very quickly. But I am at least a little bit hopeful, because with a few developers I think they can at least do some good stuff with that, and again, it all depends on whether or not it's actually content. So far, FF15, for example, has not really produced a lot of what I would personally call additional content. They had the golden saucer thing, which was cute and fun, but not really meat, is what I would define it. And they had a few gameplay changes things, which were nice. The New Game Plus, that was good. But they haven't really added new meat to FF15, but I do have to add that word yet, because, you know, by all accounts, we're going to get the Gladiolus thing, and we're going to get the Prompto thing soon, and that will actually be what I am defining as meat, additional content to the game, and therefore that will prove the point that consoles can start doing post-release updates. I am just hopeful we do not have a situation like... well, FF15 is actually not a bad example, aka a clearly unfinished game. No offense, I liked FF15, but a clearly unfinished game that was pushed out the door, and we'll figure it out later. This is going to be a really short lore week, by the way, because we're going to be jumping right into the other thing. I actually have 3 topics I thought about talking about, and I've decided not to, because they're not time sensitive. They can be talked about whenever. So we're just going to jump right into some Mass Effect stuff, because I know y'all like Mass Effect stuff, and if you don't, you're probably in the wrong channel, because we're going to be talking about Mass Effect a lot over the next few weeks. Oh, actually, I do have one last thing, which is a very small point to mention. Tetsuya Nomura went on record as saying that he actually had a video of new footage to show. It's not clear from context if he meant footage of FF7R, footage of Kingdom Hearts 3, or both. But regardless, he had that footage, and he wanted to show it, and he was not allowed to. Make of that what you will. I really don't actually know what to make of that. I mean, it's not like anybody is expecting FF7R or Kingdom Hearts 3 anytime before the next millennia. Now, moving on. Mass Effect. Pause. So, I'm going to go ahead and move this to... well, no, I'm not. I'm just going to let it play, and we'll just talk about it. I'm going to actually mute it, because I don't want to get hit by copywrong, because copywrong is stupid. We do see a couple of things here. I am going to get rid of myself. None of you will actually want to see me anyway, so we'll just get rid of me. No, get rid of... there we go. Yeah, so we've actually kind of already seen the new UI. We've seen the quest tracker, upper right. We've seen the radar, very top middle. We've seen your party control thing in the bottom middle. Health, shields, ammo, or I shouldn't say ammo, excuse me, special abilities in the lower left. Excuse me, lower right. I am really tired, I apologize. And the gun you have equipped in the lower left. I don't know what that 12 is. I haven't been able to figure that out yet. Because, see, here's the thing. I really want to point this out. You see how there's a 20, 140? It's kind of blurry there. It's kind of blurry there. But it's there. It's right under the guy's right armpit. You see that 20, 140? I mention that because they have confirmed there's no ammo in this game. Like, that's here. It's somewhere up here somewhere. Where did he talk about it? Oh, fine. I'll play it without muting.
Our combat offers amazing freedom of movement with the use of a jump jet that allows you to jump, evade, and even hover while you're fighting.
So, this just in, they've decided to start catching up with games that came out 10 years ago. I'm sorry if I sound derogatory, but I really hate it when someone's like, God, we've come up with this brand new, amazing idea that everyone's been doing for a while now. That does, now, so in the interest of total honesty, that's still great and all, but yeah.
You'll also notice a new dynamic cover system that allows you to seamlessly use almost anything, including your own vehicle, for cover.
So, Deus Ex.
All this freedom allows you to approach the battle in a way that suits your gameplay style.
Blah, 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 blah.
Let's take a closer look at our weapons. In Mass Effect Andromeda, there are 4 categories of guns: pistols, shotguns, and sniper and assault rifles.
I don't see the anti-materials rifle, but there's room for more.
Plus a range of melee weapons for up-close combat. All guns are available to every player. There are no class restrictions. So if you decide you want to try something new, it's as easy as switching your loadout.
Now, I've been pretty negative so far, but I want to go ahead and pause and say, good. You know why I used to play a soldier in Mass Effect 1 and 2 and 3? Because their special abilities were twofold. 1, the ability to use every gun, and 2, the slowdown thing, you know, the adrenaline shot or whatever it was called. That was it. So, the fact that anyone can use any gun now is great, because that allows more customization of you playing and using whatever you want, and not worrying about getting too far behind because you haven't found another gun of the type you like, so, woo.
Guns and gear in Andromeda fall into 3 technology types, based on where the tech comes from. Milky Way weapons typically use physical projectile ammunition that's similar to the types of weapons you might be familiar with from our original games, with some advancements, of course.
Okay, so apparently they do have ammo. I mean, I know everyone in chat said that, but apparently I was way too tired when I last read this. So yeah, apparently there are some guns with ammo. I'm going to pause and say that's frickin' stupid. Are we seriously going to try and blend Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2 style? Is that actually where we're at here? We want ammo and no ammo? Whatever.
These are high-impact projectile-based guns. They're great against most non-shielded targets, but require you to keep an eye on your ammo. Remnant weapons typically use beams, have a high rate of fire, and are extremely accurate. They use the overheat system and don't rely on ammo, so you'll never run out of ammo, but you'll have to wait for your gun to cool down from time to time.
I mean, okay, I'm admittedly negatively biased, I've said that before, but if I'm pulling my own aggravation here out of this, because that really, really feels like they're just saying, screw it, here, have both. At the very least, that does, like the anyone can equip anything thing, allow you to have the options of whatever. I would probably be more in favor of this if it was like you use ammo for the big guns, which actually he hasn't even referenced yet. There's still the big weapon. It's like the heavy weapons in Mass Effect 2, for example. But whatever, moving on.
Helios weapons are technology from civilizations that live in the Helios cluster of Andromeda. They are generally plasma-based, which means they are slower speed, but benefit from heat-seeking technology.
Also use ammo.
Charge-based. The longer you charge them before releasing, the harder they hit. Melee weapons vary in both damage and speed. Hard-hitting hammers do maximum damage.
I just want to point out one thing, and I do think this is a good thing. You notice that there's nothing here indicating he has a melee weapon equipped, so it looks like he has a melee swing, kind of like Mass Effect 3 did, which I am actually in favor of. Because you notice he still has the typical assault rifle with 9 ammo equipped there, and he still ones up and as a melee weapon, so woo.
While lightning-fast shivs or swords allow you to get in and out of harm's way with maximum speed and precision. In addition to weapons, you can also develop skills and abilities.
Let me go ahead and just pause really quick. I like this.
Like the weapons, there are no restrictions on what skills you can choose.
So you probably can't see all of this because of the chat, and I don't care. Over on the left, we've got Overload, Incinerate, Assault Turret, Cryo Beam, Energy Drain, Tactical Cloak, Flamethrower, Unknown, Invasion, Team Support, Offensive Tech, and Auxiliary Systems. So most of those are going to be stuff we already know. You know, stuff that has come back from previous Mass Effects. Woo, I'm with it. I also like the ability to mix and match, rather than having to play, you know, a Vanguard, for example, to use certain types of biotic abilities. I like the ability to just be someone who can use assault turret alongside, tactical cloak, for example. I mean, that's a bad example, but you get the idea. I do like that. I like the ability to just pick whatever you want for the same reason I mentioned earlier. It also says exactly what the stuff is, the specific variants that each skill rank does in the lower right, which is good. And it says your current loadout. Everything I've seen, please feel free to correct me on this, I'm super tired right now, has indicated that you do have 3 slots at a time, kind of the Super Guild Wars 1 mentality, except in 8, instead of 8 it's 3. So even though this particular character has like 6 or 7 abilities unlocked, they can only equip 3 at a time. I don't know what the limitations are on switching out abilities, so we'll see where that goes. I also want to point out one other thing. I know it's kind of hard to see, but in the left, there's abilities that are circles and abilities that are triangles. If I were to guess, based on the nomenclature, I would assume the circles are usables and the triangles are passives, because the 3 triangles are team support, offensive tech, and auxiliary systems. I don't know what invasion is. I'm kind of curious about that. But, anyways.
Choose, and each of the 3 main categories is designed to facilitate a certain style of play. Combat skills are great if you want to focus on weapons, gear, and making your character the ultimate soldier.
Oh, sorry, I stopped just a little bit too late. This makes it a lot more clear, by the way, because you can see pistols, assault rifles, shotguns, sniper rifles, combat fitness, and combat tools are all with the triangle and therefore passive. Also notice that there are a ton of skills available here in the tech, combat, and I don't think it actually shows off biotic, but that's a lot of stuff to go into. I noticed they seem to have gotten rid of the slowdown adrenaline thing, which I can't actually remember what it's called, but whatever.
Ultimate soldier. These skills focus on improving weapon depth.
I'm going to go ahead and pause here again. I don't actually remember which game did this. I think it was Mass Effect 3. But I do kind of like the ability of picking which, like it not rather than just an upgrade and it gives you a flat increase to the stat. You choose which particular upgrade you want, similar to, for example, XCOM is what comes to my mind immediately. So the fact that we can upgrade combat fitness to get health, to get increased shields, to get extra holster, and then to either boost our consumables or boost our regeneration, I like that. Again, more options.
And accuracy, as well as giving you the ability to use flat cannons, grenades, trip mines, and more.
It was in 3, thank you. I thought
Tech
so.
skills allow you to equip your Pathfinder with more experimental weaponry, or focus on strategic improvements for you and your squad. Cryo Beam and Flamethrower give you more offensive punch, while skills like Invasion or Energy Drain weaken your opponents and make them easier to take down.
Apparently Invasion is a debuff.
Want a little extra help? Deploy your own assault turret.
I'm getting that, by
Last
the way.
but not least,
There we go, Biotics. He does show off Biotics, sorry. So yeah, Pull, Throw, Charge Nova, Shockwave, Annihilation, Backlash, Singularity, Lance. Pretty much some basic stuff there. I might actually do a build where I have Charge... I haven't actually decided yet, obviously, but Charge, Turret, and something else for the third one. Kind of sounds like something I'd like, personally. Also, really quick thing I want to pull your attention to. I think it's a little bit under the chat. Yeah, it's actually completely under the chat. Hang on, I'll just... This is going to be weird to do. If I could just get the thing... Yeah, okay. You can see right above the chat right now. First of all, level 56. I have no idea what that's going to be like. But the thing I really want to point you to is the item limit. We do apparently have an item limit of 50. I don't know if that's going to be expandable with new slots or like a bank or whatever, but I just thought I'd point it out that that will be a thing. I have no idea exactly how they're going to handle loot in this game. I haven't seen anything to indicate that at all. And, of course, under here we have all of our basic menu stuff. Nothing really noteworthy there. Credits. Now, I do want to point out this in the upper right, by the way, because this is our level over here in the upper left. I'm using you guys. You guys are now my mouse pointer. Congratulations. But, yeah, so we've got our level right here. But what the hell is the Nexus level? Now, I have some theories about this, because this is probably a keep mechanic, basically. I don't know what else to call that. An ability to upgrade our home base kind of a thing and level that up and get whatever upgrades or things that is. Or maybe that's a multiplayer thing, or maybe that's like a separate leveling system, a talent point kind of a system, some other form of horizontal leveling. I don't actually know. I don't know what the Nexus level is, but I wanted to point it out because that was actually one of the first things I noticed when I watched this for the first time.
Biotics. By controlling dark energy, your Pathfinder can harness the power of mass and gravity. Biotic skills like pull and throw allow you to literally control the battlefield, using your enemies as a shield or even a weapon. Abilities like Annihilation Shield or Singularity can disrupt and damage anything or anyone caught up in their powerful grip. Each skill can be upgraded to become increasingly more devastating and effective. Each also has choices to make when upgrading, offering you more ways to customize your playstyle.
Blah, 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 blah. Cool stuff.
Now that we have the basics down, let's put this into action. In this case, our Pathfinder is equipped with a sniper rifle and a shotgun, and they've got their 3 powers selected. You'll notice that different enemies each behave in unique ways. Some will keep their distance and try to snipe us. Others will charge right in and try to flush us out of cover.
I just feel like pointing out that there's a heat problem on this map he's playing on. Here, let me rewind a bit just so you can see this here. Let me shut him up for a second. So you notice they're right there in the middle of the screen. You see that? Heat hazard. Heat hazard level 1, temperature at 50 degrees Celsius, which I don't know at the top of my head, but that's pretty hot. We also have it in the lower left, too, stating that we have a heat hazard here. I point it out because you notice when we go into the shade, we enter a safe condition zone. I actually theoretically like this idea. If it's pulled off well, I like the idea that we will have to deal with environmental hazards in addition to, or indeed perhaps in place of, enemy hazards in certain areas, because that makes sense to me. It would not only add to the more explorative feeling, but the fact that we're in an entirely new galaxy where we're still figuring out stuff and stuff hasn't been properly settled or terraformed or whatever yet. You know, I like that idea. So here's hoping they actually do something with that and don't just make it what it is here, which is make sure you're not out in the heat too long while you're in the middle of a firefight. Yeah, Mass Effect 2 did do that very briefly, I believe just for the one area, if I'm not mistaken. The one area that was a massive foreshadowing bit for a light that never actually, or for a plotline that never actually came to be.
Limited supply. Enemies each have different strengths and weaknesses. For most, headshots inflict maximum damage, but you'll need to pay attention to their health bars.
All of this is basically just Mass Effect 2 stuff, by the way. They've got armor, they've got biotic shields, and they've got regular shields. It's straight out of Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3. Nothing new to add there.
It means they've got armor and won't be as susceptible to certain weapons and powers.
Now, I really don't want to sound negative, but Hailstrom, thank you. I couldn't remember the name of it. That would be cool, Leander. I like that idea. You notice at the top of the screen, there's a little radar dish thing. I have this really weird feeling that this is going to be an Assassin's Creed kind of a thing. You know, go find the radar dish, get a, you know, and do the eagle eye thing, and get some of the info in the local area, and then go and get all the collectibles. You know what I mean? And I only say that as kind of a negative because that is such a normal default open world thing at this point that it's almost it's almost getting to the point where I'm tired of it. We'll see what they actually do with it, but I just thought I'd point it out.
And powers. Blue means they're shielded, and in addition to being more resistant to biotic.
Actually, I want to point out something that he's not talking about here. Let's see if I can
Pay
find
attention.
it. Okay. Yeah, there we go. You notice how the two icons are over this guy's head? I like, yeah, exactly, the default Ubisoft open world game. That is exactly what I'm referring to. You notice the two things that are over the mech's head there? I actually like this if I am correct. I think that indicates who exactly your squad mates are targeting. It would also be cool, and I have no reason to believe this is otherwise, that that's a way that you can direct your squad mates, a.k.a. squad mate A, attack this, squad mate B, attack this, since that's been a thing since forever in the series. But either way, just thought I'd point it out.
To the health bars. Yellow means they've got armor and won't be as susceptible to certain weapons and powers. Blue means they're shielded, and in addition to being more resistant to biotics, you'll generally need to deal with those shields before their health goes down. And just like you, their shields will recharge if you don't finish them off quickly. Tactical Cloak is a tech skill that allows you to evade enemy detection and inflict increased damage when attacking from cloak. And finally, Overload. Another tech skill that's great for taking out enemy shields and synthetic enemies. By holding it before releasing, you can even chain it to multiple enemies. And this is just one of the hundreds of combinations of weapons and skills you can try in Andromeda.
That's basically
for
it.
Future installments where we'll show you our profiles.
Oh, hang on. So yeah, profiles, I just have a bit of a theory about this. I want you to read the text. Here, I'll just read it out for you. Because it's probably kind of hard to read on the camera. The Explorer is a jack of all trades, with abilities ranging from combat to tech to biotics. This profile reconfigures Ryder's mind and body to be as versatile as possible, permitting her to switch rapidly between firing weapons, deploying technology, and wielding biotic powers. For Explorer rank 5, you need 52 skill points invested in combat, tech, and biotics, and the rank 4 bonus is 11% weapon damage and 11% damage resistance. How many of you guys have played Kingdoms of Amalur? Because I think that's exactly what this is. For those of you who haven't played Kingdoms of Amalur, in that system, you can invest points all willy-nilly wherever you want to. And then over time, based on the points you have invested, you could basically gain a mega bonus, which gave you significant bonuses to whatever you were investing in, you know. And then, so if, for example, this literally seems exactly like the Kingdoms of Amalur situation right here. And I mean, it says it right there on the right. You have to have 52 points in all 3 trees to get the all 3 trees profile, which then gives you a bonus to weapon damage and damage resistance and whatever else. You notice you can scroll down more, so we don't actually see all of it there. Yeah, universe. I was a universalist, by the way. I was all 3 when I went through Amalur for the Rumination. We were playing Here's the Storm Progue, and if you notice on the left, again, it's a little bit hidden by the chat, but you know, we've got combat, tech, biotic, and then I actually don't remember what all of those are, but, you know, Sentinel, Vanguard, Infiltrator, and Explorer. 2, 2, 2, and then 3. So, yeah, I think that's exactly what that's going to be.
Boost in combat. Favorites, which are
oh, yep. And then this is actually kind of neat, but they don't get points for this. This is something that should be in a game like this. The ability to switch out load-outs is something that should be in the game, and I am glad is.
You immediate access to your sets of powers so you can change up on the fly, and squad skills and commands.
Take cover! Take cover!
I am Archon! Oh, sorry. Sorry. That's it. That's all I got for Andromeda this week. Oh yeah, I got rid of me, didn't I? Oof! There I am. I'm back. So yeah, this all confirms something that I really hate. I almost hate to do an analysis like this because I basically feel like I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen, this just in, water is wet. Because this all seems to be confirming something that we've all been predicting for the better part of a year. The combat, the gameplay will probably be fine. It will be a shooter with some RPG elements attached to it. Kind of like Mass Effect 3 was, or like Mass Effect 2 was. That's not my concern when it comes to a new Mass Effect game. And of course, there's no way to tell if the thing we actually care about will be anything in there. But I will say, and I agree with Andre there, it does look like at least it will be fun to play. I do think I will actually have fun playing it, even if I am face-palming at everything else. We'll see. I don't know. We'll get there. I do have a couple other things I could talk about for Loreweek, but it's all conceptual stuff. I'll talk about one. A 30-minute Loreweek is just so low. I want to talk about Dark Souls 2 a little bit. Let me get a timestamp here. I want to talk about this. This is just a topic. Whoops! I actually hit the mic there. I want to talk about Dark Souls 2. Okay, or more accurately, what I want to talk about is lore. No, not the guy from Star Trek, and not me either. No, what I want to talk about is lore. Now, lore and exposition are actually kind of very side by side because lore can be exposition and exposition can be lore. Yeah, there's nothing to see there really, Ruximus. Also, that's more your thing than mine. So, the lore of the Dark Souls. Okay. I want to talk about approaches to lore when it comes to fiction, most notably video games, because this applies to video games more than to most other media. Who out there has played Metal Gear Solid 4? I mean, I'll raise my hand. Obviously, I have. Played it all the way through twice, actually. Once for the Rumination and once before that. The lore runner does not like your statement, Sean. No. I cut off the music. I need music. So, the reason I mentioned that... Metal Gear Solid 4... I actually do like Metal Gear Solid 4. Let me make that clear. I actually forgot Better is the one. But then again, it's on the PC. That might be part of why. And I'm playing with friends, which is a huge factor. The reason I bring it up... as much as I enjoy the gameplay of Metal Gear Solid 4, and I actually really do, the story is probably the worst example of that particular type of lore development. because I'm going to borrow an analogy from Yahtzee. Metal Gear Solid 4 pins you under it and then just vomits exposition on you for 20 minutes. That is a method of getting lore across to the viewers. But I have a different analogy that's slightly less gross that I'd like to use. I want you to picture a puzzle. You know what a puzzle is. You get it out, put the pieces together. Now, I heard he's dead, Darkrai. So most games, I want you to picture the lore of a game as a completed picture of whatever it is you're trying to make with the puzzle, okay? So some games have a picture of the puzzle right there. So it doesn't matter if you ever put the pieces together yourself. It doesn't matter if you actually ever complete the puzzle, because the picture's right there and you know it. There are several games which just have, boom, here's the story. There's no questions, there's no ups or downs, there's no theory crafting, there's no subtlety or complexity, it's just boom, story out right there. Now, I'm not saying this is necessarily a bad thing, this is just one of the methods to do so, okay? Most games, the vast majority of games, however, don't have that picture there. To keep this analogy going, they just have the puzzle pieces and nothing to base it off of, so you have to figure out, with the puzzle pieces, what the lore of a game is. Now, the reason I'm using this specific analogy is because I found in my years that most video games have a different number, ask someone else the one, I don't know, have a different number of puzzle pieces already there. For example, anyone who's done a puzzle knows that, the big trick is to do the outside edges first, right? Well, some games, the outside edges are already made for you. You've already got the outline and the general idea of what you're making. Some games have quite a bit of the puzzle pieces already laid down, and there's only a few pieces for you to pick up and try and figure out what they mean. Now, you're probably already understanding how this relates to Dark Souls, because, so, for example, in Metal Gear Solid 4... the puzzle is pretty much there. Like, there's only maybe 4 or 5 pieces that are not actually there in the puzzle in Metal Gear Solid 4, and those pieces are put in throughout the course of the game by the game itself, to keep this analogy going. By contrast, Dark Souls, Dark Souls 2 especially, has nothing. It's just a bunch of puzzle pieces, and none of them are already placed. And therefore you look at it like, now, I'm not necessarily saying that's a good or a bad thing. Let me make that clear. I'm not trying to lay judgment. I'm not trying to critique or review. I just wanted to discuss the different approaches. Because let me just mention something. Someone in the last night's stream was like, hey, what's a forlorn? And I was like, you know what? I don't know the answer to that. So I decided to go digging into it. And a while later, I came out with the most vague freaking answer I could come up with. Because, near as I can tell, the forlorns, plural, because there are plural of them, are several of the undead creatures who were experimented on and crafted into the form that they are made by Alduus, or how the heck you pronounce his name, the first scholar, the scholar of the first sin, as a method of trying to understand the means by which he can attain the secret of eternal life. That's it. That's about all I got. That's not really an answer. You know what I mean? That doesn't really tell me any depth or so I like, okay, well, why don't I look up this scholar guy? And I started reading up on the scholar, and I started hitting some theory crafting forums, and I got a few bits of information about the scholar and Nashandra and their relation to the king, and, wife and brother, brother and wife, respectively. Damn it, Guido. I guess I can't argue that Primus's puzzle is quite difficult to put together, and my sister yells at me for it constantly. But anyways, but yeah, so Dark Souls' approach is an approach that I've heard many people praise. In fact, 90% of the praise I hear for the Dark Souls series is that approach to lore. There's just a bunch of puzzle pieces, and again, some of them are not actually there. It's weird because I want you to think about this for a moment. I made this concept, I made the statement of the concept yesterday that I was enjoying Dark Souls 2 specifically because I was avoiding the lore. You remember that? And I admitted to that, and it was kind of an embarrassing thing to admit for me, but it's true. I was ignoring the lore and therefore enjoying the game more. And I started thinking about it. Because of the nature of the skippable cutscenes and the fact that there's nothing basically shoved up into your face ever, you can literally go through the whole game of Dark Souls 2 as an intelligent individual who is competent and paying attention and have no idea what's going on. My opinion is that that's a little bit too far. That's just way too far on the left end of the scale. There is some background lore there. There's the kingdoms that are discussed about. There's the nature of the undead curse and how it's spread. And there's talk about, the different people who worked in the different townships and the smithies and the knighthood and all that stuff. There's lore there that would fit just fine in just about any other game. But you have to go crawling to find it. And I'm not sure I agree with Roximus's comment there. Because, in my opinion, you have to put too much effort into figuring out the lore of Dark Souls 2. I do think it is a little bit... I'm speaking specifically of Dark Souls 2, by the way. I think it's a little bit too far on this side of the scale. I tend to like things a little bit more in the middle, where they have, a lot of the puzzle pieces there, and they imply some things, and they let you figure out some things for yourself. They don't treat you like an idiot, but they also don't require you to go way out of your way in order to diverse every single little bit of information from everything in order to actually put together a complete piece, a complete puzzle yourself with no guide. But again, I'm not trying to get into negativity. I've given my opinion on the matter, but that's not what I'm actually wanting to talk about. I find it interesting how so many games have approached so many different methods of this puzzle lore theory. And a lot of them tend to have... like, for example, there's... Let me keep going with the puzzle analogy. So let's say there's a corner over here, and the edge is done, and the edge is done, and like 5 or 6 pieces there, but there's like 2 pieces missing. So you have a pretty good idea that you're looking at something that's kind of like a boat. I know this analogy is getting a little stretched, but bear with me. But those 2 pieces basically aren't there. And you have to decide what makes up the holes of an otherwise large thing. You decide, based on the other 80%, what the 20% is. And I kind of prefer that method personally. But the main point I wanted to make, actually, is that there really is, in my opinion, no such thing as a completely wrong way to do it, with one exception. I'm not going to name any names, but it is my opinion, we're gonna really stretch this analogy to the breaking point here. It is my opinion that if you have a game where there's people referencing and talking about the lore, and then you have to go someplace other than the game to understand everything. Now, I want to stress the way I said everything there. My opinion on this has admittedly varied a little bit over the years, because I don't mind having to, read a couple of things, or like the short stories for Warcraft or Starcraft, in order to get more of the full-fledged story, because all of those just add to the lore. All of this just add to the story. More of the nuance of why Gul'dan is doing what he's doing. More of the specific inferences of exactly why, the Zerg have developed the Banelings and why those are a thing. That's not necessary for the story, but there have been at least 3 games I can think of off the top of my head where, to use an example, let's use Lord of the Rings as an example. Let's say all of a sudden Frodo, let's remove Gandalf from the films, okay? Just hear me out. And Frodo's like, we must take this ring! And it's never explained what the ring is. There's no explanation whatsoever of the ring. It's just, oh my god, I've got the ring! Let's go with the ring to this place. Where are we going? Mount Doom! And none of this is ever explained. It's just they're taking this ring to Mount Doom, and there's no Gandalf, and there's no exposition. It's just ring, quest, fight things. Okay, big action sequences. Okay, we tossed the ring in. Whew! We're good, guys. We're good. And you have to go and, read this other thing completely separate from the movies or from the books to understand what the ring is, why they were taking it to Mount Doom, who these people were, That, in my opinion, is going too far. That is the only thing I would personally say is actively bad lore development when it comes to a video game. And actually, I agree with Eric there, his comment about the piece of a puzzle as opposed to the puzzle itself. That actually makes sense. But yeah, so I do feel that is a negative thing to me personally. And again, I could name a couple of games. I don't mind a little bit of stuff. I don't mind reading a couple other things to to get a little bit of more flavor, but I really should be able to understand the meat of the thing within a work. And I mention that because there have been a couple of games I have been asked to give my opinion of and talk about within the last few months that I look at and I'm like, but there's nothing there for me to talk about. And some people's comments on that have been basically, hey, you know, Lore, I really want you to comment on X game. Again, I'm not naming any names, but I want you to comment on X game because you get to make up your own story in it. I don't want to do that. I mean, I want to make up my own stories, and then I want to play games that have stories. I like having a degree of motivation for what and why, rather than just here's some stuff that's happening, and then you're flying through space looking for minerals. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. So, yeah, again, I only used the Dark Souls thing because Dark Souls actually reminded me of this as we were going through it last night. Anyways, I'm going to cut off for real this time. Again, short lore week. We're going to jump right into Heroes of the Storm. Now, a friend of mine has asked for a reserved spot, and she... oh, hang on, actually. Let's cut off the local recordings really quick.